Awesome. People have been waiting for this. Hi, everyone. Already got 8 folks here. Tim, Sunil, Scott, Sawan, Pinky, uh, Andy, Bert here. Hi, everyone. Good morning, good evening, wherever you folks are. Let's give it a few minutes for others to join in. We'll kick it off.
Absolutely. Yeah, let's just wait for everyone. It's the vacation time, so I'm guessing some few folks will take some time to join in. How's the vacation time looking for you, Harsha? Any plans for the year end?
Nothing for the year end, but right after year end, I'm going off on our first anniversary vacation. So that's exciting. But yeah, year end, just stay at home, kick back and relax. That's pretty much it.
I think you just came from Paris, right? I thought that would have been a short vacation for API Days Paris. How was your experience there?
I wish it was a vacation, but it was good. We were all there with the Treblle team for the API Days Paris conference. This was the first time at API Days Paris for Treblle, the biggest API Days event. In case folks here do not know API Days, it's the biggest API only conference that happens across multiple cities. So it was good. We had a big booth, a lot of good conversations about APIs for pretty much 3 days. It was a good break after we came back, not talking about APIs for a couple of days, but we are back at it again.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm joining in from Zagreb this time. This is my first time in the Treblle office, and I've been spending some time going to the Christmas markets and just being in the blue theme. So it's absolutely not gloomy. That's one thing.
Oh, it's not? Okay.
Yeah.
I thought Zagreb would be gloomy at this time. Okay.
I mean, overall, because of the lights and everything, it is pretty warm, and yeah, it feels like Christmas and winter. So I'm all for it.
Nice, nice.
Seems like we have a lot of people who've already joined.
We got a lot of people here already. Happy to have you here, folks. Let's give it a few more minutes, maybe a couple or so, for others to join in, and we can kick it off. I'd love to know where you all are joining in from. Please leave it in the chat. I'd love to know where you're all joining from.
Yeah, and for this webinar, like I really hope like we all can have a conversation about this year's report and the findings, because I personally was like, there are few parts which I feel have blown me, and I did not expect them to be the way they are. So that's my interesting part of the conversation. I'm like waiting to bring up that discussion. All different framework leaders and framework enthusiasts, like please come in and let us know what framework you're supporting. What is your favorite way of building APIs, I guess.
Hey, Andy, you're from London. Hi.
Oh, amazing. It's a beautiful time in London at this point. I can definitely say that. I do see a lot of people who've joined in from India at this time. I know, Harsha, you're also joining in from India, but I'm so glad to see so many folks from India who've joined in.
Yeah, we're all night owls here in India. So I guess that's the reason.
I mean, anything for good APIs, I guess.
Yep.
Cool. I think let's get started.
Yep, let's kick it off. I think we have a good amount of folks, and this webinar is recorded as well. So we'll share it across with people who've registered for the webinar.
Absolutely. And well, welcome everyone to another webinar with Treblle. And this one is about this year's anatomy of an API. We started publishing reports since last year, and this is our second year publishing a report. And with me on today's webinar, I have Harsha Chelle, who handles everything around GTM for Treblle. And yeah, in today's webinar, we'll be talking about our findings from last year, a quick recap about that, and our findings from this year, and what are our thoughts about it. And we would also like to know what are your thoughts about it. Over to you, Harsha, if anything I've missed out on.
No, that's pretty much it. So I'm Harsha. I work at Treblle along with Pratim. I've been working with APIs for the last decade. And we just posted the agenda for today on chat here. So do take a look at that one. Really excited to talk about the anatomy of an API report, which has been something that we've been doing for a couple of years now. So I'm joining in from Bangalore, as Pratim mentioned before, in case you did not hear that. So it's 10 p.m. here where I'm from. And before we start off with the reports, quick mention about Treblle. What do we do here? So Treblle is an API intelligence platform. We help basically organizations understand their APIs and figure that out. We have a suite of products with observability being at the core of the platform. And then we observe, we have a lot of SDKs for every language, framework, and gateways using which you can integrate Treblle, and then you can have access to all the solutions that Treblle provides, including and not limited to security, governance, compliance, analytics, docs, cataloging, testing, and a lot more. We have all these workflows are fully automated. We work with a lot of users as well.
We have a big community, something that we take pride in. We have developers joining in from different companies, some of the companies that we've labeled up, and we process and analyze around 2.2 billion API requests every month. And this is something that we take real pride in. We look forward to processing more and more requests, APIs, and that's what we'll be talking more about today.
And that number is growing every day, by the way.
Yeah.
Both the number of users, I think it's already past 160K in terms of users, and probably about 2.5 billion now. And also, this is probably interesting to a few of you folks, especially who are joining in from companies who use services of Gartner or IDC for your own technology stack or consultation. Treblle is recognized by Gartner, IDC, and Everest Group in different research and reports, as you can see here. But my favorite thing on this slide is we've recently been awarded the best product in API observability category at the API World Conference in Santa Clara, where our team was represented and took this award. So that's really cool, because this is a new category. I don't think there's any other product which does API observability, and being the best in that is really something that I'm proud of. Yeah.
And a little recap about last year's API report. So last year was the first year we did a complete report on anatomy of an API, studying different parts and different areas that are affected by a technological endpoint, an API. And the findings have now helped us to compare this year about what's working, what's not working, how have the numbers changed.
And one thing I'm really excited about the anatomy of an API report when we started doing this last year is basically these are based on actual numbers and factual data, and not a survey, which typically a lot of reports focus on survey respondents and basically access, which is also very interesting. But our take on this report is basically we look at the numbers that we've been processing at Treblle. I think the last year's report we looked at around 8,000 or 9,000 APIs and a billion requests. And some of the findings, as you can see here from the last year, were AI APIs doubled in 2023, I think with around 90% growth compared to 2022. And whereas a couple of other interesting things last year were Most API requests are made midweek. I always thought they were probably at the weekends, where people will go shopping online,
Or
but it
Monday.
turned out to be, or Mondays, yeah.
Yeah.
But it turned out to be Wednesday. Every fifth endpoint on an API is a zombie endpoint, which basically 20% of all endpoints on an average basically don't get used, which also correlates both the AI thing and the zombie endpoints finding correlates a lot even in this year.
Absolutely. And the fact, something that we will see in this year's report also, we will discuss about it, was that APIs are insecure. They are largely insecure. And we have been studying that for this year as well to understand more about why are they insecure, where does this section come in, and where do threat levels come into picture for API development across different ecosystems, I guess, not just the financial domain, not just the technical domain, but even, for example, health domain and other domains. So this is something that's a thing for everybody to take a step back and really study why are they insecure. And for anybody who wants to download this API, this report, it's available on our website, and you'll get a link in the chat if you want to see and read more about last year's report on anatomy of an API.
Yeah, it's already on chat. Take a look at it. So it's going to give you more insight before you download this year's report and take a look at that. So anatomy of an API 2024, that's what we are here to talk about today. Again, as we mentioned, this is published every year in the last quarter, typically in December. We'll probably get it out November next year, so people have more time before the holidays to read it, with the idea to understand how people actually build APIs from a technology and a design standpoint. This year, I think from a methodology standpoint, as I mentioned, I think last year we analyzed 9,000 APIs. This year, we took it up a notch. We analyzed 15,000 APIs and 500,000 endpoints, and we stuck to analyzing 1 billion requests. It's easily comparable to any previous year, so we can track how things change. I think that's one of the things that we'll continue doing every year as well. So,
and the interesting thing that you mentioned, like we spoke about, you quickly mentioned, Harsha, before, is like all this data points come from a anonymized data set that we have, and the fact that this is real learnings. This is based on our understanding, our growth as a company, and as we are also learning more about APIs. So this is something that we've not just like gotten from any other source, but purely from what we have seen that is working in the industry.
Yeah, we built a lot of APIs over the last 3 years as well, and we'll talk about it during the report.
And not just build APIs, but also observe a lot of APIs.
So true. My favorite finding, my favorite finding of all the key findings is the first one, which is the scale of enterprise API landscape is substantial. I'm sure people who join in who are from enterprises already are aware of this, but it was really eye-opening for me when we constantly find this validating, where most enterprise level organizations maintain over 1,000 APIs within their landscape today. And also we've been seeing this across a lot of industry reports. In fact, some large companies report that they have 25,000 plus APIs in use. Think of companies like Facebook, Meta, or Google, or even Amazon. In fact, I know that logistic companies are really big when it comes to APIs. I recently learned that DHL has about 40,000 plus APIs, and Postal Service has about 50,000 plus APIs, and so on. So these are really large numbers. And when we are talking about even really not these technologically large organizations, even if you're talking about smaller ones, at an enterprise level, we see 1,000 APIs within their landscape. And majority of those APIs are private or internal, as we call it, which is not surprising at all, followed by partner APIs, and only a small fraction of them are public. I think 90% of them are internal, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
And I think then followed by partner, and then public.
I'm actually curious here, Harsha. Like, sorry to cut you, but I think, why do you think companies need so many more APIs? Like, why? I understand, like, AI, there's this whole wave of AI and everything, but what aspect of us or consumers is changing the need for APIs, and how is that affecting APIs? Like, why are we having more APIs for the same product is what I mean.
I think traditional organizations becoming more digital. I think that's one of the key I think that's one of the main reason why we see this explosion in APIs. I mean, an example, we've heard about this in this decade itself. We've seen really traditional organizations, be it insurance or automobiles or even finance organizations or banks, have expanded their API efforts significantly, and we are noticing this with the digital products and experiences that we are using every day. I think at a global scale, and we are not talking about this, and enabling all these digital experiences and composable product experiences is all powered by APIs. And of course, AI, like you mentioned, Pratim, is I think just taking it up a notch, which is probably doubling down on this digital experience. But I think that's one. And it's also getting complex because of all of this. More APIs means more complexity, which is why we always keep hearing from these really large organizations that observability and governance is key to manage so many APIs. But we'll talk more about that soon.
Absolutely. And I think, coming back to what I feel as a developer, why we're seeing so many more APIs being built is because now it's easier to build businesses compared to what it was even for a year ago. Like, with the kind of tools we have today, it's easier to build products. It's easier to build technical products. And that's just made more people be encompassed with the correct tools that they require, I guess. What do you think? Because I see more developers out there. I see non-developers. I see non-technical people also going up and like having that skill set now to build APIs.
Yeah, I mean, GitHub recently released a report saying they crossed 100 million users on GitHub. I mean, at some point, all these people who are using tooling like GitHub might not be developers because I think as far as I know, I think we are sticking to around the number 40 million developers in the world. But I think when it comes to the number of technologists who interact with technology and building these tech businesses or doing anything technical or working on technical products and things like that, I think that number is really growing, which basically is reflective of what we are seeing here. Yeah.
Yeah, and just to reiterate upon the thing that in the last report, when we saw that the number of the number of instances of insecure APIs, and this year's report, the numbers have changed. That is something I also feel has been to some extent affected by AI. We have written about that extensively in the report. Am I right?
Yep, we did. And the numbers are just really huge when it comes to how many AI APIs we are seeing this year.
Yeah.
And we'll notice that in the next section of the slide. Yeah.
Yeah. But before we talk about AI, because I know that's something that we've been hearing, I think, for the last 2 years. And with every day there's a new feature that OpenAI is coming out with, or every day there's a new LLM. But something that was the most interesting part of this report for me as a developer and as someone who enjoys building backends was the fact that which framework builds better APIs, which community, if we want to make it a little bit more personal, which community builds more stronger APIs and more secure APIs, and which doesn't. I am actually this is a very controversial topic to talk about when it comes to who has the best standards, who knows how to build better. But this is what our data says. Our data says, it's not me. I'm not saying this. I am a gopher. I love building in Go and Rust. And this is not me saying this, but this is the data talking, that apparently, and based on the data that we have, JavaScript-based APIs score lower than average. I really
we
want to
had
know.
this we had this discussion in Paris as well when we released this report. Yeah, I'll let you finish your thoughts before I pitch in on why it is this way.
I personally, I don't have I want to know what the audience thinks about it before I put in my thoughts. But this is the point where I want everybody to pitch in and let us know, like, what do they think about this, and like what is their way of building APIs. And because personally for me, I think, based on my experience as a Java developer and as a Go developer, and now learning a little bit of Rust, there are areas where I've noticed that there are much more options to build in the JavaScript framework. There are literally a lot of different ways you could build a single API. And I'm wondering if that's the start of the building insecure APIs.
No, that's valid. I also have a couple of thoughts, not opinions, just thoughts. One, I think, obviously, as you mentioned, I think a lot of frameworks, a lot of libraries are, and I think typically JavaScript is also thought to be lightweight and flexible when it comes to building APIs. But also, I would say probably has a little lower barrier to entry when it comes to JavaScript and people getting started with JavaScript. Which probably focuses on flexibility as opposed to being super strict on security practices or development patterns, as opposed to, let's say, like a .NET or a PHP maybe. So that's something that I thought could be a reason. And also, I mean, developer education is also something that needs to build on, as JavaScript is probably the most popular, one of the most popular programming languages that's out there. So I'm sure that also plays a factor there.
Absolutely. And one of the reports that I keep checking and like tracking is the Stack Overflow report about the most popular frameworks, languages, and everything. And that's where we see that JavaScript is one of the most popular languages to be used. And all the frameworks under JavaScript also have a higher score. But when it comes to older organizations, bigger organizations, or companies that have been here for a very, very long time, most of their backends are built building backends in JavaScript. According to me, I might be wrong here, but according to me, building backends in JavaScript frameworks is comparatively a newer thing. A lot of companies still have their backends, be it in C++ or Java or now Go and Rust. And this is also, I feel, where, because this is still not tested in the enterprise world that much, we are not seeing huge scales being tested out on these frameworks. That could also be a reason why the APIs are still not according to the standard. Do you think that?
I would say yes. That's definitely a big reason on why standards are becoming more and more important and more popular, especially among API developers. In fact, one of the things that surprising is, if you see the next thing here on the slide, which is Laravel is a clear winner with an average score of 62, followed by the .NET ecosystem, which is also probably because maybe more emphasis on standards and practices as opposed to others, and having an opinionated view maybe.
Absolutely. We have a question about how does the score look like for other APIs? And I think I'd like you to share more focus on that.
I think, I'm looking at the questions now. How does the score for other languages look like? I think Laravel stays on top. .NET Core comes comes close number second. Then we actually have a JavaScript framework, JS, and then Go, then PHP, then .NET, then Spring Boot, Rust. But if you want to actually look at the whole graph and the report, we'll link it on chat here. Go download the 2024 Anatomy of an API report. We'll just put it on chat in a second. There you go. It's already there. And you'll have access to this on page 13 of API governance core per language and framework. So go check it out and leave your comments on chat if you have any.
Laravel is a clear winner, and my understanding of this is because it is such a niche community, and because the language is also built around a lot of like strict rules, that could be a reason why we're seeing a better score for Laravel. And I know that we also have the Laravel team who's put in their views in the report, and it's always good to hear straight from the source. But what are your thoughts on why Laravel has come out as a winner here?
I think +1 to everything that you said. But in fact, I'll quote what Taylor Otwell, the CEO of Laravel, said. He also gives a quote on this report. I think it's a very developer-focused framework to ensure people can build, scale, and build secure APIs. That's been at the core of Laravel since the beginning through robust rate limiting middleware, authentication systems, and other tooling that it provides with the sole focus of enterprise grade features out of the box. I think we typically do not see Laravel as an enterprise tool or an enterprise framework. If you go to a big enterprise, I don't think anyone is using Laravel, but I think that's slowly changing, and we are starting to see Laravel being used in applications which work at scale in enterprises, and we are starting to see that when we talk to people and talk to our customers as well. So yeah.
Another thing is when you spoke about rate limiting, like one thing I am aware of, that one of the issues with JavaScript APIs or like JavaScript SDKs is the way you handle rate limiting. And over the time, we've seen this via different reports with different deployment options. Like I don't want to like typically names like the different ways of deployment, but we are all aware that rate limiting not having the proper rate limiting has caused many businesses to like run out of money. And like one day they just wake up and they're like, okay, what happened? Like, why did I get so many requests? Like, why has it made my API just go bonkers? And I think this is connected to the way and the standardizations of how you're building your API.
Believe me, we've had many users and customers of Treblle. After they integrate Treblle, Treblle helps them figure out who is, let's say, maliciously using their API and going above the rate limiting because they didn't have that check in place. And it's surprising to see that these do not happen in like small startups or individual developer APIs. These happen at really large organizations. So which is very surprising, but I think that's why there are products like Treblle to help them figure this out.
One interesting domain that we covered in our report was what industries build better APIs and what industries are leading when it comes to having standard APIs. And we have management consulting industry come as the first one. And I was like surprised. Like for me, I was hoping it would be deep tech industry, or it would be AI industry, or young startups that would be at the forefront because they know what's up and about and what's like the recent trend. And but why management consulting industry though?
Maybe because they charge per hour and they can't afford to mess up. I'm just kidding. But I think because they've been here the longest, maybe alongside IT and finance that you can see, we've also been here. Like we've seen financial products and banks exist from hundreds of years since the beginning of computers and technologies, right? They are the first ones to adapt to these. I think it's purely because of how long they've been in this business, building technologies and building APIs. But also, I think definitely I would still add to that because it's definitely they can't afford to mess up. I think these firms run with a mindset of being paranoid, not for themselves, but for their customers and clients, because they can't afford to mess things up. And it always security and security and governance stays at the top of their minds more than in fact making more money. So I think that's sort of the difference that I see when we talk to customers every day.
Right. I think the finance industry makes complete sense. When I worked for a Swiss bank, and I specifically worked on building and developing APIs, and we, as a team, we had extremely strict testing, and we had different multiple rounds of testing where it would go from one team. Like as a developer, we would test it as well, and then we would have a testing team, then we would have another QA team who would also test it out. So I definitely understand the finance industry being like among the top folks to build better APIs.
Yep.
One surprising fact, which I think we should consider adding to our next year's report, is we saw how the consulting domain and the consulting industry builds robust and safe APIs, like standardized APIs. But I'm curious to know if they would be also in the forefront of like innovation, because I am guessing it wouldn't be that way. Innovation is something that the new startups, the AI industry and everything is bringing in. So it'll be interesting to see how the management and the consulting industry does on that quotient.
Yeah, definitely would be interesting to see that correlation between their API robustness versus what they're actually what the products are they're building or innovative things they're building.
Innovation, yeah.
We should definitely consider that.
One thing that the current industry has changed is how our APIs are complex, and they are getting complex day by day, quarter by quarter, and error by error is what I'd like to put in. The numbers are out there. Like the average API in 2024 has around 42 endpoints, and that's a decently good enough big number, I would say. And this is different from what we saw last year, right? Our reports.
It almost, yeah, this number almost doubled from last year, from 22 to almost 42. And I think, and it's interesting to also see that most APIs now fall in the 11 to 50 endpoint groups, with 35% of those being zombie endpoints. I mean, as we've spoken about this in the beginning, but as these APIs are becoming more complex, we are also noticing that people are building APIs which are probably not being utilized fully or being used for the full extent. That's the reason we are also seeing these unutilized, or what we call as zombie endpoints, really grow in number every year. But again, I think this is where teams need to come together, especially not just engineering teams who are building these, but product teams and business teams who are giving these digital use cases and building these complexities into the API to really go back and think through of what they're building and really evaluate what is needed and what's not needed.
Yeah, just for someone who's joined in new and is the first timer on our webinar, Harsha, can you give us a quick definition of what zombie endpoints mean?
Yeah, sure. So zombie endpoints are basically the endpoints in your API which are not being used. They are live, they are on production, but nobody uses them. So these are endpoints that go unused. Essentially, they exist, but like a zombie, right? Nobody cares about them. So it's very important for organizations to understand and discover these zombie endpoints first, which itself could be a huge security risk sometimes, because nobody is looking at them because they're unused. So yeah, that's a zombie endpoint, and we are seeing this number really, really grow every single day.
Got it. Another interesting point was around seeing the amount of GET requests that we are seeing this year compared to the post requests. For me, it's a very surprising stat, to be honest, because yes, we are getting more information from different sources now, but I wondered we would also be creating more information, like creating more data, and that's a surprising stat for me, to be honest.
In fact, get the number of GET requests that we've analyzed has come down, if I'm not wrong, has fell down by 4 or 5% from last year. And the post requests have grew by 4% this year, which was a jump. And I mean, like you said, I think most use cases are basically fetching data using GET requests. As we know, simply return data from the server. I think that's still one of the most fundamental core use cases of an API, and I'm not surprised with these numbers. And I think we'll continuously see the post go up and probably go down a little bit as the years progress. That's my prediction for next year. But we'll see.
Why do you think that would happen, Harsha?
I mean, the way people build products itself, where they're actually doing an action as opposed to just retrieving information, I think we'll start to see that increase more and more, as opposed to people just fetching information, but also actually doing an action and sending that data to a server will probably be more. So that's one thing.
Also, today's applications are extremely responsive, and not just responsive, they are very intuitive. So as our sense of HCI, human computer interaction, improves, as our sense of UI UX improves, we're just going to keep wanting better and better experience. And that's what's going to affect what kind of data, not just as a user we actually get, but on the back end also, what kind of data is required to give us that experience, and that would also affect the get post relationship. But yeah, let's see, it'll be interesting to see for 2025. But
and if you want to know which is the least used HTTP method, I think options is the least used, and then followed by head. I don't even know what's head. I never used it, but yeah, it exists. So options and head methods are the least used ones. Again, the link of the report is on the chat, so people who didn't get it, you should get it, and actually go through these graphs and stats in detail.
And now I think we are at a point where we should all talk about the elephant in the room, in the world, in the current decade, which is AI, I guess, Harsha. The elephant of the decade, where everything has immensely changed for better, hope mostly for better, in terms of AI related products, and that has also affected the API industry.
I agree. I want to quote from one of the people who quoted in the report. I think it's critical to have APIs done right. Just like how every website started adopting Google's SEO standards and things like that, I think we are also starting to see every company adopt AI and AI agents and things like that. So it's not surprising to see that AI APIs have grew by 800+% as compared to last year. So it's really a staggering number. And I think most of these APIs are basically APIs that are calling other LLMs or other models to either fetch data or retrieve data, or basically sprawl through data for these LLMs.
Absolutely. And while we have so many large language models available and so many different ways of creating new RAG systems, the whole word about retrieval augmented generation, which is basically having context and then asking your AI regarding that context. The way most of us, like most of the developers or even non-developers, the non-tech people are talking to it is via APIs. Like AI is brought to the world via APIs. That's how most of the wrappers that are being created as well. Like we have wrappers around health use cases, we have wrappers around entertainment use cases, and all of them are supported by APIs. So I don't think this is a very shocking stat that AI related APIs have grown like by 800%.
And I think this number is just going to grow even further next year. But Vedran's prediction is it's going to go down a bit. Let's see who's right.
Yeah.
And again, I think OpenAI's API has also become a key tool for developers, right? Like I think everyone uses it seeking to integrate AI into their applications, as you said, across applications. I mean, we were at conference in API days, but basically it was APIs and AI last week that was being discussed. So there's an API behind AI. So it's imperative for APIs to really explode in this AI era.
To put it in another way, I feel APIs have now become the front end of the AI, because nobody uses like embeddings or internal ways of talking or conversing with LLMs now. We all have a more streamlined and more I think uniform way to talk to these LLMs, which is provided via APIs. So yeah, I think we are going to see more APIs being built around AI products, and then that is something I feel is going to connect to the fact that more unsecure APIs are going to be built. Insecure APIs are going to be built. Do you think so?
I definitely think so. We're already seeing that here, where close to 50% of APIs are not AI ready, and there's a way in which we determine that within Treblle, and you can read about that in the methodology, where we basically look at the API design and descriptions and things like that, because basically we see a lot of them are not architected for consumption via LLMs. So we are definitely going to see more insecure APIs that are being built out there, which is basically a risk for all the businesses who want to be AI first, but they're risking that with really building on insecure APIs. But I like what you said about APIs being sort of like the front end of AI. I think it's already there. That's the world that we live in today, I guess.
Yeah, because I don't think it's necessary today to understand the machine learning concepts of LLM, or even the parts where we're doing hardcore inferencing and hardcore embeddings to actually train a model. That is also some, like, normal folks who do not have depth of understanding in machine learning can still build products with AI today, because we have APIs available for most AI products. And that's how I look at it. Like front end, like until now, front end is what made everybody open to communicating better with technical products, digital products. And now it's going to be APIs that are going to help. APIs, yes, supported with, again, a front end, but for most of the developers who are not coming from like machine learning background or something, that's how they're going to build AI related products.
I agree. And if anyone has any questions about anything that we've discussed so far, or we've been chatting about, feel free to drop your questions in or your thoughts in the chat. Happy to take them or point you to the right places where you can find more information about it. One thing I know that is that's going to come eventually, so I'll take that now, is about how we determine the API score and things like that. I think that's mentioned inside the report if you download it, but I think typically we look at 4 things of how we determine an API score, which is API performance, API security, and your API design quality. Along with the newest addition, which is how ready is your API for AI. So all these factors are taken into account, and we run 25 to 30 different checks and tests against each of these, and based on weightages, we give out a score for you. So yeah, that's there. If you have any questions, drop it in chat. We're happy to take them before all our favorite topic and probably the last key finding of the report.
Yes. The most important one is, as well, I feel like, yeah, we saw which frameworks are good at building APIs, which are not apparently. But I think this section about API security is something that is a serious thing for all of us as an industry, about how we can improve and why we are seeing similar or worse numbers, if I may say.
Yeah, I have a validated reason for this from our talks with customers. The moment when we talk about API security, the first response that we hear back from people is, it's not my job. It's a security person's job, or it's some other team's job. That's what typically API designers or API builders respond back with. And I think that's slowly changing. But yeah, we'll talk more about that in a second. But one of the things that we found in the report is, in addition to last year's report, we found that 52% of requests had no form of authentication. 55% of requests did not use SSL, TSL encryption, and the average security score was 40 on a scale of 100. Again, not surprising stats because nobody wants to do security.
I mean, the not having SSL encryption is like, as a developer, it's a surprising stat for me. I used to think this is a standard which everyone follows, but yeah, it's pretty serious out there. Like, we really need to have more standardization and more checks in place, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, mainly for JavaScript, maybe. I'm just kidding. But yeah, I agree. I mean, we've seen API security is like the top concern, a pressing concern for every single company that we talk to, irrespective of what stage they're in. Obviously for enterprises, but also even for early stage startups. And as many APIs lack proper authentication, encryption, and other security functionalities, so which are all prone to risk and attacks, right? So yeah, that's that. One of, I mean, even things like what we discussed before, like zombie APIs, just having those many zombie APIs will also risk the endpoints being inactive, not used, and present a serious security risk. So yeah, one of the last stat, which again we discussed about this, is 85% of all APIs are not using any form of rate limiting, allowing anyone to perform attacks on the API. I mean, we read these reports probably every week of an API being maliciously used and data being breached, or a system breaking on the public internet. So I'd like to definitely see less API security attacks news every week.
We just discussed about rate limiting, right? And before we started talking about security, and all of this, as you mentioned, that everybody feels API security is not their job. It is the job of another security department. And I feel we don't really understand the importance of API security until it affects us. And the point is, like, we did a use case, like we wrote a case study, right, about this big hotel management database that was recently breached, and how it was by an API.
Yeah, we did that. We'll put it on chat for you folks to check that out. One of the recent attacks. Let's put it that way.
And surprising was that, again, the same thing, that after that incident is when everyone realized, like, okay, this is something that we need to fix. And I guess this should be part of an early discussion or a continuous observation when it comes to your APIs, that are you matching the security standards for the best way you could design your API and not something that you think about once an incident has happened.
I agree. And I think that's why the notion of shift left, where you start thinking about security from the time that you're thinking about a use case or you're thinking about a user problem, is starting to be more adapted within the developer experience ecosystems, and how they start building products and how they start building APIs, right from when you're starting to write the user story or starting to write a specification itself. We are starting to see developers imbibe the practice of including security, which will definitely help with lowering these threats.
Absolutely. I know we are coming to an end of today's webinar. And we're ending on a very serious note with the security aspect for APIs. And my worry, to be honest, is we will be building more with AI, and security will become a bigger and bigger concern as we start trusting LLMs, cloud-based LLMs more and more. We'll be having more private information being sent to AI APIs. And I think this is the time when API security should be a big concern for all of us. And smaller parts, like even masking your data, masking your private credentials, is going to be more than important than ever, I think.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. Finally, this is definitely not the last webinar that we're doing. But I think this would be the last webinar for this year. We're all going into a vacation mode around the world, where everyone's in Christmas time. And we are also excited for that. And with the next webinar, we will have Vedran. We wanted to let you know that Vedran took ill today, and that's why he couldn't join us, but he will be there for the next one. And we also have an exciting guest who might be a part of our next webinar. We won't reveal the name, but I'm pretty sure once we do, you all will definitely be excited. And I'll leave it to you, Harsha, to close off the webinar for today.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited about the guest as well, and we'll reveal that soon. And Vedran trusted us to do this webinar and share our thoughts with all of you today, but he's going to be here for the next one. So be prepared for that, and make sure to read the report. If you need anything, if you have any specific questions about anything, I think we've also described the methodology that we've used. But if you want to chat more about the report, you know where to find us. Our contact information is right here on screen, and you can also feel free to chat with anyone in Treblle on the internet that you find. I'm sure anyone will be excited to talk about the report or the findings that we have. And do share it with folks within your organizations who work with APIs. I'm sure they'll appreciate some of the findings as much as you do. So thanks, people. Have a nice evening, afternoon, morning, wherever you're from.
Absolutely. And for anything more, feel free to check out Treblle.com. That's the one hub for everything related to Treblle. We are also available on social media. Feel free to follow us on Twitter. And if you would like to be a part of our Discord community, the link for Discord is also on our website. And I will be quick to share it on the chat, but I think we have questions. Let's take them quickly. I see. What do you think happens next year? Do APIs continue to grow? It's a good cliffhanger, to be honest, Harsha. But what do you?
APIs will definitely continue to grow. We'll probably be analyzing double the number of APIs we did this year. But how many of them are AI? Will the number of AI APIs continue to grow? That's the key question that I'll be really interested to follow the trend and see if we are still going to see an 800% increase next year, or is it going to be trimmed down a bit? But APIs are definitely going to grow, is my take.
Personally, I'm also interested in seeing how many APIs will be built by AI next year. And now that we know that there are more chips being released, like we just had like a lot of new announcements from the AI world. I don't know if the next wave of APIs are being written by an AI and not us. Let's see.
Yeah, we got one last thing, and I think we can wrap it up after this.
Huh.
Seems like API tooling will be even more important next year. Is there something specific we should focus on, like security, governance, and similar? I would say all of the above. And I think there's traditionally API tooling itself is as an industry itself is growing, where we are starting to see these isolate tooling to help with specific needs and specific requirement that organizations need to focus on. Definitely API tooling will be more relevant than ever. And it continues to be the focus on how platform teams, especially is what we are seeing, focusing on API specific needs for the organizations. So definitely security, governance, and observability more than anything is on top of executives' mind. And Treblle can help with some of these, or in fact, all of these that you mentioned here on the question. So do check it out.
Yes. And yeah, that's a wrap. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great evening, great morning, great night, wherever you're joining in, and see you next year.
Yep. See you all next year.
Bye-bye,
Thanks
everyone.
for
And
being on
Happy New
Slack.
Year then, yeah.
Yeah, Happy New Year and Merry Christmas, people. Take care.
Bye-bye.